What's going on, y'all? Good evening and welcome to the ninth virtual event of the sixth annual Unbound Book Festival. My name is Takia Thomas, or TK, and I'm a member of the Unbound Programming Committee. Tonight's panel, titled Mask Off, Mask On, is one I've really been looking forward to. Dean Atta's The Black Flamingo and Elizabeth Lim's Spin the Dawn are both coming of age stories, explicitly dealing with the masks we wear, the costumes we choose, the way others perceive us, and the judgments we hold for others. The protagonist's journey to become the most free, the most realized versions of themselves, tapping into their talents and inspiring the world around them. Tonight's panel will be moderated by a local, inspiring, and talented youth, Hope Schust. She's a recent graduate of Rockbridge High School, a dancer, and I'm proud to say, an alum of Louder Than a Bomb's youth poetry program. Shout out to you, Hope.
Thank
As
you.
yeah. As you may know, the festival has always been completely free to attend, and this would not be possible without the generosity of the hundreds and hundreds of people who have supported us financially over the years. On behalf of everyone who volunteers for Unbound and everyone who attends these events, we are so grateful to everyone who has ever been kind enough to give. There is a list of everyone who has ever given over the last few years. It's on the website. And if you'd like to contribute yourself, you can do so by going online and clicking on the donate button. We are a registered nonprofit and we are completely run by volunteers. So literally everything, every gift we receive goes directly into putting on these events. So seriously, thank you. Support comes too from the City of Columbia, specifically the Office of Cultural Affairs and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. KVIA and Como Magazine are our media sponsors. A full list of our sponsors and supporters is also available on the Unbound website. A special shout out to tonight's event sponsor, Restoration Eye Care. We're very grateful to them for their support over the years. Please remember that if you do miss an event, everything is available for viewing or reviewing on both our Facebook page and on YouTube. And if you haven't already, please check out the whole schedule, all 3 months of it, on the Unbound website. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. I'm super proud of the lineup this year. While you're there, you can also sign up for the festival newsletter, which goes out on Monday mornings and will keep you up to date with what to expect each week. And please tell your friends about this festival, tell your cousin, tell your book club, and attend as many events as you would like to. Keep in mind, there is a raffle going on. Ask a question during the Q&A portion of tonight's event, and you will automatically be entered for the opportunity to win a free copy of both books being discussed tonight. And I'll come back and I'll announce the winner at the end of the event. But that's all I got for you now. Hope, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you, TK. Cool. Okay. Like TK said, my name is Hope. And I am so excited to be here tonight. And I want to say thanks to TK. She's helped me a lot for getting prepared for tonight. And a great big thanks to Unbound for putting this whole thing together and giving me the opportunity to meet these amazing authors that we're going to be conversating with. And yeah, so I'm a student, a poet, and I just completely adore the different world books like The Black Flamingo and Spin the Dawn can take us to. So yeah, so let me introduce the authors of these amazing books. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce Elizabeth Lim. Elizabeth Lim was raised on lots of fairy tales, myths, and songs, and before becoming a brilliant author, Elizabeth was a professional film and video game composer. She tends to come up with her best book ideas while writing near a piano. Her book we are discussing today is book 1 of The Blood of Stars, titled Spin the Dawn, and it's amazing. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Hope. Thank you so much for the intro.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming tonight. All right, the other person joining us tonight is Dean Atta. The poetry he writes deals with themes of race, gender, and identity. He regularly performs across the UK and internationally with an amazing stage presence. Dean's book we will be discussing tonight is his debut YA novel, and it is written completely in verse, which is amazing, and here it is. Hello, Dean.
Hello, Hope. Hello, Elizabeth. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So to get a little taste of these authors' abilities and context for the discussion, we're going to start tonight with an awesome reading from both of these guys. And then right after the reading, we're going to go into the conversation, and then we're going to get some questions at the end, which the audience will hopefully have asked. So Dean, do you mind starting us off with that brief reading for us?
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome.
So this part of the book is a poem called How to Come Out as Gay. And it goes like this. Don't come out unless you want to. Don't come out for anyone else's sake. Don't come out because you think society expects you to. Come out for yourself. Come out to yourself. Shout, sing it, softly stutter. Correct those who say they knew before you did. That's not how sexuality works. It's yours to define. Being effeminate doesn't make you gay. Being sensitive doesn't make you gay. Being gay makes you gay. Be a bit gay. Be very gay. Be the glitter that shows up in unexpected places. Be typing on WhatsApp, but leave them waiting. Throw a party for yourself, but don't invite anyone else. Invite everyone to your party, but show up late or not at all. If you're unhappy in the closet, but afraid of what's outside, leave the door ajar and call out. If you're happy in the closet for the time being, play dress up until you find the right outfit. Don't worry. It's okay to say you're gay and later exchange it for something else that suits you, fits, feels better. Watch movies that make it seem a little less scary. Beautiful thing. Moonlight. Be Southeast London, a daytime dance floor, his head resting on your shoulder. Be South Beach, Miami, night of water and fire, your head resting on his shoulder. Be the fabric of his shirt, the muscles in his shoulder, your shoulder. Be the bricks, be the sand, be the river, be the ocean. Remember, your life is not a movie. Accept you'll be coming out for your whole life. Accept advice from people and sources you trust. If your mother warns you about STDs within minutes of you coming out, try to understand that she loves you and is afraid. If you come out at 15, this is not a badge of honor. It doesn't matter what age you come out. Be a beautiful thing. Be the moonlight too. Remember, you have the right to be proud. Remember, you have the right to be you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean. I absolutely love that poem, and the motivation you give to coming out is just beautiful. All right, up next, Elizabeth is going to give us a reading for us. So whenever you're ready, share away.
Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from Spin the Dawn. This is the part where Maya has been rejected as a tailor because she's a girl. So she decides to pretend to be her brother and take his place in the tailoring competition that's taking place in the palace. I couldn't sing or write poetry. I couldn't dance. I didn't have grace or charm or wiles, but I could sew. Heavens, I could sew. It had to be me. When Baba returned to his prayers, I rubbed my finger on the coals from the fireplace and smeared it across my eyebrows. By my work table was a pair of shears. I grasped them but hesitated. My hands never trembled when they cut cloth. I could cut a straight line in my sleep. So why did they tremble now? I touched the ends of my hair, which reached past my waist even when braided. I undid the ribbons and unwove the braids. The waves rolled down across my back, tickling my spine. I lowered my hand, bringing the scissors down with it. What I wanted to do was crazy. I needed to be rational, needed to consider the consequences. But all I could hear was Minister Lorsa telling me I couldn't go, and Baba telling me I couldn't go. My whole life, I'd been told what I couldn't do because I was a girl. Well, this was my chance to find out. The only thing I could do was take it. I'm also going to read a really short excerpt from my forthcoming book, Six Crimson Cranes, which is out this summer. So here's the first page. The bottom of the lake tasted like mud, salt, and regret. The water was so thick it was agony keeping my eyes opened, but thank the great gods I did. Otherwise, I would have missed the dragon. He was smaller than I'd imagined one to be, about the size of a rowboat, with glittering ruby eyes and scales green as the purest jade, not at all like the village-sized beasts the legends claimed dragons to be, large enough to swallow entire warships. He swam nearer until his round red eyes were so close they reflected my own. He was watching me drown. Help, I pleaded. I was out of air, and I had barely a second of life left before my world folded into itself. The dragon regarded me, lifting a feathery eyebrow. For an instant, I dared hope he might help, but his tail wrapped around my neck, squeezing out the last of my breath, and all went dark. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. The visuals in both of those readings are really amazing. All right. So let's get this thing going and start with the questions, and I'm super thrilled. So, all right. My first question. So these coming of age stories had a different vibe and diversity to them. I have not always had the chance to read. I got to travel to Imperial China and London in my room free of charge, so that's awesome. And I just very much appreciate the diversity. So this first question kind of has two parts. So can you recall the first time that you encountered a character in literature, film, or TV that you connected with that represented your experiences? And how has this impacted the way that you write and you create your characters? And take your time, of course.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, Dean, please.
One that might surprise people, I think, was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because there was something about this boy who was, fairly, poor and really close to his grandparents, and had, didn't quite know what life was going to have in store for him, but something magical and big, took place and changed his life forever. And for me, I think that was what happened when I started performing and doing musical theatre and getting on stages. Like, you could come completely out of your own life. And I think, that character of Charlie kind of gave me a sense of like, you can escape into other worlds. So when I read that book, I was thinking I was going to find a golden ticket one day, but I think I made my own by writing.
I like that. I like how you said you made your own. That's cool. All right, Elizabeth, what about you?
For me, two films really come into mind from when I was a kid. The first one that I absolutely was obsessed with when I was a kid was Sailor Moon. When Sailor Moon first came to the US and was dubbed, it was my first time really watching Japanese animation in English, and I guess just being able to connect with, like, I really loved Sailor Mercury, for instance, because I was a total bookworm, and having a character who just loved to study and read all the time, like, really called out to me. And the other film that I really related to when I was a kid was when Mulan came out. Actually, I was a huge Disney fan, but all the Disney princesses were like blonde or and had blue eyes. Before Mulan came out, I really loved Snow White because I would pretend that she was Asian since she had black hair. But then when Mulan came out, it was just really nice to see like my culture being represented. It was really meaningful to me. I think I teared up in the theater. I remember I was really young.
Awesome. Cool. That's really awesome to know. All right. So these books have a lot to offer to young people like myself, and I'm really curious about the poetry in them. Maya in Spin the Dawn and Michael in The Black Flamingo shared lots of joyous and motivational words throughout tough times. Do you have any advice for young poets specifically on how to write joyous poems even when life is difficult for them?
I think paying attention to the small things that bring you joy. So, for example, I look, at the way my younger nieces see the world. They're 4 and 1, and the way they find joy in so many little things, whether it's like the ducks in the park or whether it's being on the swings. So looking for those times in your life when you find joy, I think, and really kind of honing into that and kind of describing that feeling in all the detail you possibly can. Because I think, life can be difficult, and but I think there are moments of joy for all of us. And I think when we can find them and express them, that when someone else gets to read it will give them that sense of joy as well. And I think that's what I try to do, see the world through kind of more innocent eyes, because I think even by the time you're a teenager, you know what the world's really like, but the joy's still there.
That's really cool. I think people tend to really look over the tiny, like, happy moments sometimes, so I really like that. What about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, in the eyes of my character, Maya goes through some really tough times. Even in the beginning of the book, she loses two brothers and she's lost her mother, and she's just experienced so much hardship at her young age that she manages to find joy, like Dean said, in the small things, like in her craft. She loves tailoring, she loves making clothes, and I think for me, I really connected with that trait in her as a writer, just because I think it's important in life to try to look on the brighter side of things, even when things are tough and when they're rough, because I think that's what propels you to go forward and just to move on and have progress in your life. So I think that's important for a writer too.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think definitely just looking at the brighter side of life can be very helpful. Great. So, I find it cool that how both Maya and Michael use their craft as a kind of therapy. So, I mean, Michael could literally drop everything, go to the bathroom, and write poetry. And I know at the beginning, Maya, when she was on her way to becoming like the tailor, she would be knitting sweaters. So, why was that such a major part of your character's identity? And do you identify with that at all in your lives?
I think for Michael, it was a way to reflect and escape, at the same time. So sometimes, he could be sitting in class and he's having thoughts about, his classmates, and he can't, say them out loud, but he can write them in the back of his class book. Or, in the scene that you mentioned, he's in a club and he sees something really fierce and exciting that inspires him, and he goes to the toilet and writes a poem about wanting to be fierce. And I think when inspiration strikes him, he just has to jot it down. He writes another poem sitting on the beach and kind of reflecting on kind of the meditative qualities of kind of being by the ocean. And I think he's just open to the world and inspiration, and he wants to share it, so he wants to write it down as quickly as possible. And that's the way the reader gets to experience it, whether it's in his notebook, whether it's in his phone, you get to see it presented in that way. So, Michael's a narrator, he's telling you the story, but also he has these moments where he has to write a poem. And that's really exciting for me, because I think that's how I've lived my life. I'm doing things and then suddenly I'm like, there's a poem in that. And you kind of have to get your phone out and write it in the notes or scribble it on a napkin, which is so fun. And sometimes you want to just live the moment, but then when you get home, you're like, okay, let me describe that. How did it feel? What was going on? And I think, as writers, I think we're really blessed to be able to find the words to articulate these magic moments. So yeah, I think I wanted to give Michael that quality of being able to find the words for things, because I know so many people can't find the words, and so that's why they love reading as well, because other people have found the words that they feel in their hearts.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. What about you, Elizabeth?
So I actually grew up wanting to become a composer rather than a writer, and I started piano and composing when I was at a really young age, and at 4, and it was always a craft to me, like practice, just keep working at it and you'll get better over time. And it was always amazing to me how I could improve from one year to the next, just like see and hear my progress. And that's something I've also loved as a writer. And Maya, her craft is more material, because she's making clothes, she's tailoring ensembles for people to wear. But for her, I've always found that she loves tailoring because, again, it's her job to be a tailor. Like, it's her means of livelihood for her family during the war. But secretly, she really wants to just make her own creations and have people see them, have people wear them. And that's her secret yearning that has yet to be realized, and is what drives her during the book.
Hope, can I ask Elizabeth a question?
Oh yeah, no, please. Yeah, this is a conversation. Feel free to interject whenever you want to.
Thank you. Well, because for writing the Black Flamingo, because Michael does drag, I actually went and did drag performance, learned to do my makeup, got on stage and in a costume and did a drag performance, because I wanted to know what that would feel like and be able to write it. Did you try tailoring? Did you get into some of the kind of intricacies of what your character had to do and try it out for yourself?
So my grandmother, it was actually a seamstress for like 50 years. So I remember her like sitting on her lap at her sewing machine, and she would make all of my Halloween costumes, and I would help her like the little bits that I could. So I really relied on those memories of like just working with the fabric. And like with the needle and thread. I sadly am not a very good seamstress. So like I did pick up some embroidery while I was working, like just to remember what it was like, but nothing that I would wear.
Yeah, in Spin the Dawn, you had so many details on like the tailoring process. So, and you said that you're not that great of a tailor in your real life. So where'd you come up with the ideas how to like write it so vividly?
I just really like looking at what other people are wearing and like looking at magazines. And I went to this amazing exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum a few years ago, Through the Looking Glass, China Through the Looking Glass. And there were these dresses made out of like porcelain, out of glass, out of gold, and it was just so inspiring to me. I hadn't written Spin the Dawn at the time, but I'd taken so many pictures, and I was really glad because when I started drafting, I just remembered it and went back to reference those photos so many times. So
yeah, okay. Awesome. And Dean, so you said that you actually tried on the costume, the drag costume. How did that feel, like doing that?
It was the most empowering experience I've had, really. As a young boy, I was always, I always had lots of female friends, and they always wanted to put makeup on me. They always wanted to dress me up, and I was quite reluctant to do it. And so it was great in my 30s to actually do it and do it big time. Like I did it in one of the kind of major London queer venues and kind of really blew it out of the park. I was great. And I just was like, why did I wait so long, to be honest? Because it was just really liberating. And I think I did it my own way. I didn't shave, but I had gorgeous makeup, and I had, amazing, I had my legs out, high heels on, big black tutu, very similar to the outfit that Michael has on in the Black Flamingo. So I have lived that experience, and I think that's the way I could write it so authentically and vividly, because I actually got to see through Michael's eyes in that regard.
Oh, awesome. Well, that is so cool. Okay, so there is power in the names we give ourselves, and there are power in the names and titles given to us. Maya wanted to be more than the obedient one that people told her she was, and Michael found power in calling himself the Black Flamingo. So names and titles are a mask in a way that change depending on the circumstances and situations that a person is in. What reasons, if any, brought about the names, nicknames, and titles used in both of your books?
You go first, Elizabeth.
Okay. So as you mentioned, Maya in Spin the Dawn, her name means obedient. And in Chinese culture, there's this notion of filial piety, which means that you need to respect your elders, you should respect your parents. Above all, like you have to obey them. So Maya is constantly at odds with this because she has grown up like wanting to respect and obey her parents, but then at the same time, like she wants to be her own. She wants to show her worth. And so in the beginning, when her father doesn't really want her to go to the palace, she struggles because she's always been this obedient girl, staying at home, helping her dad sew in their shop. But then she has this calling, and so she decides to follow it. And that's really the first time that she goes against the name that she's been given and like starts to become her own. And it was really important for me to show in her nicknames like Little Lamb and whatnot, like the obedient side of her, that she's going to transcend what everyone has seen through her over the course of this book, and like she's going to become somebody entirely new and give new meaning to her name. So that's her trajectory.
Yeah.
And with Michael, he has several names in the book. So some people call him Mikey. His dad's family call him Mikey, and then friends, some call him Mike, and his Greek Cypriot family call him Michalis. So kind of a Greek version. But when he actually goes to Cyprus to visit that side of the family, he sees a black flamingo, and that's what the image of a black flamingo in amongst all the pink flamingos is what sticks out to him, because he can really relate to that, being biracial, being in situations where he's one of the only black people there. And so it really sticks with him. But it's not until he goes to university and joins the drag society, and he thinks he's just kind of there to find out what it's all about. But they're like, what's your drag name? Like straight away. And he doesn't have one. So he was just like, he remembers the Black Flamingo, and he's like, the Black Flamingo, that's me. And he just has to roll with it and like figure out how he's going to be that. And he gets a lot of help from his drag family, and they lend him clothes and help him achieve this goal of becoming the Black Flamingo. But it kind of, he falls into it. And then it really helps him flourish and become the person that he always was meant to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that moment when he said, I'm the Black Flamingo, was very like, he just like slid into it so perfectly. Like, there was no hesitation. He was just like, that's me. And I was like, yeah, that's so cool. Awesome. Okay, so masks are often portrayed as the face that we present to the world in order to fit in, to survive. But I know there are a lot of people who see their clothing as armor. They'll dress up even if they're feeling sad, a suit or heels when they want to feel powerful, bold lipstick when they want to feel confident. Was this something that was on your mind when you were writing the characters of Maya and Michael? How does this choice of costume work as their armor? And I'm curious, what is the clothing, costume, makeup that you turn to as armor? So there are a lot of questions in that. So if you need me to repeat, that's okay.
Elizabeth, will you go first?
I would say actually there's two characters in Spin the Dawn who are known for wearing their masks. The obvious one is Maya, who dresses up as a boy to enter the tailoring competition, since in my world, women are not allowed to become tailors. They're not allowed to design their own creations. But the other character would be Lady Sarnai, who is betrothed to the emperor unwillingly. And she is this warrior, very kind of unpleasant character who I actually really adore. She's a very unpleasant princess who she has to be in the role of marrying the emperor when she really just wants to fight and like shoot arrows. And she'd way rather be at war. But her costume is having to wear the guise of a princess, to wear those nice dresses and to just be to play the role that she doesn't want, she's being forced to play. So that she's in direct contrast from Maya, who is having to pretend to be a boy and having to fit in with the other men in the tailoring competition and not be found out.
And I think, for Michael, learning to do makeup and finding his outfit with the help of his friends, because a lot of the things he wears for his first performance are borrowed, from friends that, give those things to him and help him achieve his look. And I think it's a real kind of team effort in that regard. So I think with Michael, the costume, I don't think it's a mask, but I think it's another way of expressing something that he has the potential to be. But I think he's also very comfortable, outside of doing drag. So he definitely grows in confidence through having done drag. But when he's out of drag, I think that confidence stays with him. So I think it builds him up. But like it's an armor that's kind of invisible. When it comes off, he's still got the confidence, which I think is very true. I think for a lot of people who have tried drag, like it gives you something that doesn't leave you when the makeup comes off. It actually stays with you. And I think for me, having had that same experience, I think that is certainly the case. Giving yourself permission to dress up, knowing you can. And, it doesn't mean you want to do it every day or have to do it every day, but it's there for you. And you also have awesome photos to look at.
Yeah. Oh, I find that so cool how even after taking off the drag, that confidence lasts. Like that's can you explain like how that happens? Because I know like when I do something, like, I don't know, I get a new haircut, I feel really good, but then when it grows back out, I'm like, the confidence disappears. So how does it last? Like, can you explain that?
I think just either taking actual pictures or taking a mental picture, not just of what you look like, but how you feel. Like just kind of taking a moment to take a mental picture. This is how I feel, and this feels awesome. I made this happen. I did this, and I can do this again. I think just remembering, obviously, haircuts do grow out, but if you take a great picture of you looking sharp, you've got that to look at, and you take that to the barber shop and say, do it again.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so going against societal norms to become who you want to be and taking your mask off like Maya and Michael did come with a lot of risk, and especially with judgments. So what do you think happens to us internally when we judge other people? And you could say like what happens in your own lives, or what do you think happens in the book when other people are judging someone else?
I think in my book, people are judging others when they're feeling insecure about themselves. And I think that comes through quite clearly with Michael's best friend, Daisy. So without giving too much away, she has some judgments and some insecurities and fears that later on are revealed. You get to understand why, and kind of Michael learns to forgive through kind of that experience with her in particular, because, she had her reasons. And I think we have to remember people do have their own insecurities and reasons why they're being judgmental. Not to say that's a excuse, but there are reasons behind it. And in my own life, if I've been judgmental of someone, it's probably because I'm also being that way to myself. I have a voice in my own head that's very critical, and so if I'm getting critical of others, it's because that voice is being like that toward me as well. And if I can turn that down for myself and learn to be more accepting and forgiving of myself, I become more accepting and forgiving of others as well. So I think it's often a reflection of what's going on for the person who's being judgmental. There's something going on for them as well.
Okay, got it. And what about you, Elizabeth?
I think in the competition part of Spin the Dawn, most people don't know who Maya truly is. They do believe that she is Keaton Tamarin, her brother. And so the judgment comes mostly in terms of her age. She's the youngest competitor in the competition. So a lot of her rivals will mock her and try to make her feel insecure because she's young, and they'll say that she doesn't have experience. She's never worked for nobility before. Like her designs are unsophisticated, and they'll just try to get to her there. But she has, Maya does have these insecurities, but she also knows deep down that even if she doesn't win the competition, this is her way to get to shine, really, to have some of her creations be seen, and to prove to herself that she can do it. And I think that's what's really important. I think as an author, I personally am my own harshest critic. A month after I write a book, I'll probably hate it. and then I have to just go back and remind myself what I love about it and stop being so insecure and judgmental of myself. My family always tells me to work on this, and it's helpful to have friends who are supportive. And as Maya finds in the book eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So you were mentioning how Maya is very young, and that's a big reason why she's being judged. So I have a question for both of you. Why did you decide to have these characters be young and then slowly progress into who they are? Why didn't you start potentially, if they're start with older characters, then they grow older and they, take off their mask? Why was young? Why were you drawn to that?
I think I knew where I wanted to end up with Michael, and I think I wanted to think about how he got there. So how does someone become a drag performer? I wanted to write this kind of origin story. And for Michael, it started when he was 6 years old and he wanted a Barbie doll and doesn't get one. And it's about that longing for that thing that, he's told, oh, boys don't have that, or boys don't do that, regarding, various things he wants to do in his life. But he also has a supportive mother who does eventually get him the Barbie doll and does support him in other ways. And when he comes out as well as gay, he's very supported by his family. And that's really essential. All those stages to giving him the confidence. I don't think, you it doesn't just happen that you become a drag performer. I think a lot of things have to line up for that to take place, because it's a big deal for a man to put on a dress and get on stage with makeup on. Like, in our society, that's still quite a big deal. It shouldn't be, but it is. So I wanted to show, what was in place for this boy to grow into the man that had that confidence. And so, yeah, I had to start young and show that kind of things do start, your identity forms quite early, and there's lots of small decisions that you make, that your family make, that your friends influence in you, that make you who you are. And and I think he was always the Black Flamingo, and I just wanted to show how it came out of him toward the end of the book. So yeah, for people, just without it being a spoiler, the drag is like the last portion because it's about how he gets there.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you. What about you, Elizabeth?
So Maya is 18 at the beginning of the book, which is very young, especially to be considered a master tailor. But what I really wanted to show was that I feel like a lot of teens are used to being told they can't do something, like they have to wait until they're older. And I wanted to show with Maya, because I remember as a teen, like being told there were so many things I couldn't do, that she has these skills, even though she's young. She's been working her whole life, and she's sacrificed so much to become so good at her craft, and to really try to go for her goals and not let anything hold her back, whether it be her gender or her age or what other people think of her. And for me, that was a really empowering thing to write. And I wanted my readers to feel that they too could pursue their dreams if they wanted to, no matter their age.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, for both of your books, as a young person, I definitely got like what you guys just said. I got like I could see myself doing that. It pushed me to want to get to where both of your characters ended up at the end. So you definitely succeeded for me. So color was very present in both of your guys' books, whether it was the color of someone's skin, the color of clothing, the color in someone's eyes. It was certainly there. So the first question is for Dean. In the Black Flamingo, Michael talks a lot about what it is like being mixed race. Do you mind sharing how you think masks play a role when you are mixed or come from different cultures?
Yeah, I think for Michael, he is kind of accepted in different ways by different people. So I think he's always, he's always Michael, but what people see Michael as will depend on the context that he's in. So, for example, when he has his dreadlocks for a period of his teens, people assume things about him. They think he's Rastafarian. They think he smokes weed, and some people think he is a drug dealer. And so he has to deal with those perceptions of a black man with dreadlocks, and and he struggles with that because it's not anything that he was really equipped for. Like, I don't think anyone had that conversation with him as a teenager. I don't think his dad wasn't around, and his uncle, kind of gives him a hint, but quite late on, as to like racism and institutional racism. So it's a bit difficult for him, kind of being in a world where he's got his white family and his black family, and he's closer to his white family. So he kind of, some things about being black take him by surprise when he gets to university. And I think that comes through with the Black Flamingo in amongst all the pink flamingos. I think that black and pink distinction was quite important for him. He writes a poem that's in the book called "I Want to Be a Pink Flamingo," because there's times where he does just want to fit in with the kind of predominantly white environment he finds himself in. When he's at university, most of his classmates are white, and the only other black guy in his class think, well, should we talk or shouldn't we talk because we're both black? And it's that kind of awkwardness of like, there's 200 people here in this lecture, but because we're the two black people assume we know each other, so we might as well get to know each other. So being thrown together, he makes a great friend in that character. So I think that's really lovely, but it's also it's kind of circumstantial in a way. So I think he struggles with it, right up until the end. I think it's only towards the end where he really kind of can own his blackness and his queerness and speak really confidently about his identity. But it takes a lot of microaggressions and a lot of difficult conversations to get there.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. And for color, for you, Elizabeth, in Spin the Dawn, Lady Sarnai hates yellow and she does not like magic. And Eden's eyes turn yellow when he uses magic. Was that use of yellow intentional?
I think it comes from me. Like, I personally don't love wearing yellow.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good on me. So I just projected that into Lady Sarnai. As for Eden's eyes turning yellow, I think that came to me visually. I'm a very visual writer. Like, I try to imagine my book as a movie as I'm writing. Mm-hmm. And just when I was picturing it, I was just like, oh, his eyes are going to turn yellow. And that's how it came. There's not that much more depth to it than that.
Okay. Got it. Do you guys have any other reflections on the use of color in your books? Or if not, that's okay. No? Okay. All right. So this is a question kind of on the romance in the books. There are times when your characters lower their guards and take their mask off when they're near their lovers or romantic interests. What role do you think romance plays in the journey to becoming more free?
I think for Michael, this is a story of self-love. So I think there are some romantic interests. He has a couple of crushes in high school, and he has it was not even romantic. He has he hooks up with a guy at university, but he wants it to be more than it turns out to be. And I think essentially he has to find that self-love. And I think the biggest kind of loves as well outside of self-love is that family love, and also the friendships that he makes, and his friendship with Daisy, which is a really difficult friendship, but one that's a kind of lasting one throughout the book. And I think I think romance doesn't play a huge part in this book, although it's hoped for, and although it's kind of like there are near misses with romance. If there's a romance, it kind of happens after the book's finished. And I can't say too much without giving anything away. But yeah, I didn't center this on romance because I really wanted to focus on self-love and self-acceptance.
Okay, got it. And what about you, Elizabeth?
So Spin the Dawn does have a pretty sensual romance, but without giving it away, I guess, who Maya ends up falling for. So I think when I was writing the romance, one of the things that I really wanted to consider was Maya is on this path, this like hero's journey, and in the beginning, so many people they underestimate her, and so the person that she ends up falling in love with right off the bat can see through her mask and realizes that she's this girl masquerading as a boy in the competition, and that intrigues the love interest. And throughout the course of the book, like they end up, I think it was really important for me to make this character support Maya, even though she's pretending to be a boy, even though she has these incredibly impossible tasks that she has to achieve. Like, he helps her, and he has this terrible secret, this terrible burden that he has to bear, and she helps him, and in turn they find equals in each other. And it was really important for me there to just like have this this romance that's very supportive on both sides and equal in that respect.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm done with my questions, and we have a lot of audience questions, so I'm going to get started with those. So we have a question from Kelly. It says, what do you like about young adults? Dean, do you mind starting us off?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a brave genre. It really is bold. It really has limitless kind of possibilities. There's all the genres of adult fiction sit within young adult, but they kind of mix and blend. It doesn't feel so fixed, and I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think with novels in verse in particular, I think they really get to a character's heart straight away. You're let straight into what they're thinking and feeling straight away, and I think that's I think because a lot of young people write poetry, and I think writing in a poetic voice is a really relatable thing for so many young people. So I think that's I'm glad I entered with the novel in verse, because I think this is a part of YA that I really enjoy being a part of. But who knows? I might be writing dragons one day.
So, what about you, Elizabeth?
So when I was growing up, YA actually didn't exist as a genre, and there was only children's and adults. So it's a very new genre. And as Dean was saying, there's just so many possibilities in it. There's very lighthearted YA, then there's very gritty and dark YA, and there's so much in between that I just feel like you can write. There's so much that you can write. There's so much that's left to be explored. That's why it really appealed to me as a writer. And I also just love writing about teens who are still finding themselves, who still have this journey to go on and still have so much to explore within themselves. I think it's a very deep, it's a deep field or a deep genre than sometimes it gets credit for.
Got it. All right. We have a question from Becky. It says, I found throughout the book that Maya always kept a distance between herself and the clothing she created, unless it was useful to the process, like trying on the shoes. But toward the end of the novel, she claims a dress as her own. Is this a visualization of her claiming her own power or recognizing her own power?
Yeah, I was very aware of this as I was writing Sin the Dawn. Maya doesn't really wear any of her creations, even when she's working in her father's shop. For most of her life, Maya doesn't receive credit for the creations that she's made. Even during the competition, she is working under her brother's name. So everything that she makes, people think belongs to her brother. But by the end of the novel, I guess, small spoiler, she is exposed as Maya Tamarin. Everyone knows that she's a woman. And by putting on the dress of the Blood of Stars, this is the final visualization, as you say, of her claiming her power and her coming into her own.
All right. We have a question from Raheen. It says, Elizabeth, do you think your music background impacts your storytelling? And then I'm just going to go off of that. Dean, can you also say maybe how your drama background impacts your storytelling?
Yeah, music has had a huge and unexpected impact in my storytelling. I would say that I think a lot more about the rhythm of my words and how the sound of my words, I guess. I always read my entire book aloud to make sure that my dialogue doesn't sound stilted or wooden. And I think a lot about the structure in terms of music, just having recurring themes and motifs that come back, and I think they help weave the story a bit more cohesively.
Yeah,
what about you, Dean?
Similar to Elizabeth, I read aloud when I'm writing, mostly because I know I'm going to be recording the audiobook as well. So but I've got that kind of spoken word poetry background also, and I think that a novel in verse or any poetry should be read aloud. I think that's the best way to experience it. And I think for me, having done drama, having done drag, having sung in choirs when I was younger, I think all of that kind of, you can see that in Michael's character. So I think I definitely used a lot of my own experiences to create Michael. And then as a writer, I think there's a musicality that I've carried on. There's dramatics, and I think I definitely, like you, Elizabeth, as well, see what I'm writing, I kind of can see it being made into a film. Like I can see the scenes. I often call my chapters scenes. Like, and when I'm talking about the book or to my editor, I'm like, yeah, this scene, I see it like this, and it's like it's a chapter. It's a book. I have to remind myself.
Yeah, they are both books, but to see both of them as films would also be another spectacular thing with the visuals you guys both give. Okay, so we have a question from Kelly. It says, how do you think the pandemic has affected the identity development of young people?
Need to think about this one.
Yeah, no problem.
I think that's a tough question. I mean, I haven't had as much contact with young people as I usually would. I would usually do loads of school workshops and go and do readings and Q&As in many schools. And I think, that's just not been such a priority at the moment. I think, where they are getting to, get into school or learn online, there's been a lot of lost learning and a lot of lost time. And I know, including in that, there's a lot of lost socializing, because I don't think online socializing is the same as in-person socializing. And I think, there's a chance that young people are feeling really isolated and lonely. And I think I worry particularly about like LGBT young people who are not out, and having to kind of go back in the closet, because I know many young people that I do school visits and speak to say they are out at school, but they're not out at home. So to have to kind of go back in and put the mask back on essentially must be really tough for those young people. So I think that is something I worry about, because schools are can be really safe spaces for that, and for young people to figure out their identity with supportive, teachers and their peers. So I think that's something that we should think about.
Yeah, on that note, I trying to look on the brighter side. I know that more people are also, because of the pandemic, being active on social media, and hopefully they're finding groups that they can socialize with, that and they can identify with on social media, and hopefully find more people together there. But yeah, it's tough. I really hope everything gets better soon and people can go to school and go out and see their friends.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Okay, we have a question from TK. There is a specific moment where your characters shift. The fearless attitudes and bravery they held in those moments were moving and inspiring. What was it like for you as the writer to witness the turning point, the maturing of your characters?
Lots of tears for me, because I know that Michael and teenagers today have a lot more freedom to express themselves and a lot more possibility. I was going to say possibility models, like role models, people to show you what's possible. Because I think, when I was in school, we didn't have YA books. We didn't have LGBT books. In the UK, when I was at school, there was a law that prevented teachers from talking about homosexuality. So that meant that teachers were just, couldn't talk about it, and couldn't, bring material in that had gay characters. It was literally banned in all schools across the UK for all of my school life. And I didn't realize until I'd left school that was the case, because the laws got lifted in 2003. And then I was like, oh, they've been keeping so much from me and from my generation and the generations before. And so what I feel grateful for is that I can write this book, that this book can go into schools, that teachers and librarians can champion it, and it's got a queer character, a Black queer character, who is proud and out and happy and supported and loved. Because if I'd seen a book like that when I was a teenager, that would have blown my mind, and I think given me way more confidence than I had when I was a teenager. I'm only getting that kind of confidence now in my 30s, and I wish I had it when I was that age.
in Spin the Dawn, for Maya, I would say actually at the end of book one, she has found the power in herself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that others respect her. And I think it takes a bit longer for that. A lot of her experiences in tailoring, I would say, were actually inspired by some of the encounters I had as a composer, especially in the film music industry. A lot of people told me that I had no chance of being able to find a job in the industry because I was a girl and because I was Asian. And that was really tough to hear, especially as a student. And I just really remembered how it made me feel. I think a lot of the people who told me this were just being practical, weren't trying to hurt me. And a lot of these conversations I tried to transpose into what people tell Maya. Like, they're just being practical when they're telling her, oh, like, you shouldn't dream so hard. It's just not going to happen. And so by the end, like, she's made it very far in her internal journey, but she still has a ways to go. So I think it's a long journey.
Yes. All right. So we have another question from Kelly. It says, what is your advice for a new writer?
Read a ton.
Read, yeah.
And also write. Like, I can't tell you how many books I've started and never finished. And like, you can't publish a book if you don't have a book. Like, you just have to sit in the chair and just like get it out, like from start to finish. I think that's the best exercise.
And I think join a writing group, if there's one in your school or one in your community that you can go to, so that you have friends who write, that you can share books with, that you can show your first drafts to, that you can talk about books with, that can hold you accountable if you're trying to achieve something in your writing and you've got a deadline, or you've got, a word count you're trying to reach, then they can check in with you and you can do that for each other. I think having a community of writers around you will make a huge difference as well, because it doesn't have to be lonely. I think that's a big myth about writing. Mm-hmm. Like, there are other writers that need the same support that you need, and you can give it to each other. And so I think finding any writing group to join, or starting one, if you don't have one already, start one at your school, and there will be people that want to do it with you.
Awesome.
And also grow a very thick skin, because there will be a lot of rejection. There will be a lot of people telling you that they don't like your writing, even after you're published. So I think it's important to believe in your story and believe in yourself, while also being receptive to constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I fully agree. I definitely need to work on growing a thick skin because I'll share like a poem and the criticism, it just hits me. I'm like, oh, man.
I know, it hurts.
Yeah, because you're writing your like inner feelings, and then someone's like, no. but
that doesn't make it not valid. Your inner feelings are your inner feelings, and it's your truth. And I think, coming back to an earlier question you asked about, how did my drama background help me? It was going to auditions, getting told no, not getting the part. You develop a really thick skin, because it's not even that you're bad, you're just not like the one they're looking for, or you weren't the one that day, and that's okay, and there'll be other opportunities. And I think with your writing, maybe that poem didn't hit the mark with that person, but you're going to write more poems. And I think that's the thing to remember. Like, this wasn't your one and only poem. Even if it's your first poem, there will be more. If you just sit down and write another one, you've got it in you. So I think, knowing that a rejection is just in that moment for that piece of work, but you can write more, or you can submit elsewhere. So don't let that hold you back.
Exactly. I completely agree.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the night is coming to an end, and I know, time was flying. But I really appreciate your guys' input and your awesome answers. But yeah, that is a wrap, and TK is going to be joining us.
Yes, hello. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Of course you can hear me. Seriously, guys, that was fantastic and amazing advice, like towards the end there. Submit. You will get rejected, probably more than you get accepted, but there are millions of other places to submit. So just keep like just keep going at it. So I really appreciate you making that note of that. Again, a huge thanks to everyone who tuned into this event tonight. Seriously, a fantastic conversation. Hope, you were great. I want to see more. Yeah, I want to see more young adult readers interviewing young adult authors. Like, I thought that this was just beautiful. To add my own 2 cents, just because like I went so hard reading y'all books. Y'all have no idea. Fantastic. I've been telling everybody about them. Y'all, you really have to go pick up these books. Do not let the YA title fool you. These stories are for everyone. The Black Flamingo is just so sweet and so tender and passionate, and the poetry is just so spot on. Beyond being inside Michael's head, you really step into his shoes. There's something about reading poetry out loud, and I like to read my books out loud. There's something about reading poetry out loud that really reflects your own experiences right back at you. Dean, you are a voice for the people, and I thank you for this novel. For Spin the Dawn,
Thank you.
yes, for sure. For Spin the Dawn, I really need more people in my life to read this so we could talk about it. Because y'all, Maya is on a journey. This book goes so many places. I was not ready. I don't want to give anything away, but I was not ready for all the places that this book went. Some of the most vivid and alive characters I have ever read. This is another story dripping with passion, and I am here for it. So thank you, Elizabeth. You guys can purchase these books through Skylark Bookshop's online shop. We do have a winner for tonight's raffle. Congrats, Becky Smith. I promise this was not a rigged election. Becky, you can send an email to mail@unboundbookfestival.com. If you do that, give us your name and you'll receive your free copies of Spin the Dawn and The Black Flamingo. Another shout out to this evening's sponsor, Restoration Eye Care. Next Tuesday on February 23rd, I think that's right, we will be back with the art of the sentence. The panel is the art of the sentence. And that panel will be featuring Anjali Sachdeva, Michael Nye, and Rion Almikar Scott. So be sure you tune in next week on Tuesday at 7 o'clock right here. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, y'all, and have a good night.
Good night.